Well, hello and welcome to Entrusted. I'm Susan Yerkowitz with Harbor Lily Creative, which is bringing you this podcast. And you know what? Harbor Lily Creative was founded to bring about creativity and connection. And that's one of the things that we're doing with this podcast. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to introduce you to the guest, a special guest tonight. And I know that you're going to fall in love with him because he is a producer extraordinaire, and he actually is the producer for Entrusted. So I'd like to welcome to the show Kent Kuholski. Welcome, Kent.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me on.
Of
I
course.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting. This is very exciting. I'm excited to hear more of your story.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell people a little bit about what you do?
Well, I started mainly way back when I started Fiat Ministry Network way back, um, probably in the year 2011. I started watching what we call now a podcast, but back then, people were mostly podcast was an audio podcast, and but I saw this gentleman online doing what we're doing right now with either live or recorded video podcast shows, and I wanted to also get into my faith, and I wanted to kind of see if I could put the both together. And so I also had a gentleman that I was talking to that did ministry work, and he mentioned, you know, maybe go with Fiat, and Our Lady's Fiat, saying yes. And so I kind of like, okay, can I take that name and kind of run with it? And so back in the day, most anything that we were doing, we were trying to just have everybody's yes. Encouraging all to say yes to Jesus Christ was our slogan, and we were just trying to reach out to anybody that would want to share their story, how they got into their faith, and to build up, feeling like there's other people out there with maybe not exactly the same story, but maybe touch, little parts of your story with them. And so, and we, we met through doing a podcast, and that's great that, you know, down the road, I'm kind of doing more other production, but it got me. I mean, Fiat was the beginning of everything. So I'm working with other ministries. I've done multiple different, religious events, live streamed or recorded. And I just, I keep building now. There's other things that I'm doing, but Fiat is how I started doing all of this. And I appreciate you having me on.
Oh my gosh, we've come full circle. This
Yeah,
is
that's
crazy.
true.
So, to explain to everybody that's watching or listening, Kent interviewed me. Actually, it was back in, I'm going to say 2013 or
Uh,
2014,
yeah.
when I had written the book.
Uh-huh.
I'd written a book titled Triumph. It was about my son, John Michael,
Hmm.
who was, we found out that he was diagnosed with trisomy 18 when I was about halfway through pregnancy. And we welcomed him come what may. He went full term and he lived 2 days. And that was the book, chronicled that story, chronicled the experience of people that entered our lives during that time. And Kent was, and Joel were very gracious to have me on the show at the
Yeah.
time and talk about the book. It was a great experience. Thanks again for that.
Yeah, no problem. And that's
Yeah.
part of what FIA was all about. It was getting the stories out that maybe not everybody, could hear. I mean, there was EWTN, and
Hmm.
now after looking back after all these years, I mean, there's so many podcasts. There's no so many outlets to get the faith. It is kind of amazing what is out there now with ministry
Hmm.
work, and what you're even doing now.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I think that's where I was headed with that in the beginning of the podcast, talking a little bit about what Harbor Lily Creative was founded for, kind of where we're headed. Um, it's really, this whole podcast is about encouraging people to use their talents because the world needs what you've been given. That is how beauty is going to enter the world. There's a famous quote by Fyodor Dostoevsky: "The world will be saved by beauty." It's been my just kind of I just have a sense about that part of that beauty is going to come from people and people sharing what they've been given with the world. And to me, it's a tragedy if people don't share their talent because that person is unique and unrepeatable, and their time on earth was sent, or they were sent to earth at this time for a very specific purpose. And it's robbing the rest of us if people aren't willing to share their talent. And that could look like so many different things. I mean, I think you would agree. It's not just when we say creativity, that looks like very different things, feels like very different things, sounds like very different things for different people. How they utilize their creativity might be as a math teacher, as a
Mm,
librarian, as an artist. And let's focus a little bit on what you do with production,
mhm.
because it's well, you were doing, and you still do, your own podcast, your show, and yet you also work as a support for people that don't have the technical experience and need help to get the word out. So, can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe the difference between kind of being in front of the camera and being behind the camera. Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I started, I told myself I had to get in front of the camera to do this. So, um, back in the day when I was in grade school or high school, I never wanted to be in front of people. But with one camera, looking at one camera, I'm just looking at a camera. I'm not looking at 100 people out. So it's kind of a little bit more, but I do love the behind the scenes. I also do FMM productions. It's just Fiat Ministry Productions, um, and we do, a lot of, one of the big ones that I've been doing for about, we're counting on 6 years. It's the U.S. Grace Force podcast with Doug Barry
Mm.
and Father Rich Holloman. We've been doing that for 6 years, every Monday night recording, helping them out, helping you, other people. I have a gentleman over in Wisconsin. There's a lot of good stuff about the internet, trying to get connected with people, and a gentleman out there, Bill Snyder with Patrick Hart Ministry. We've done a couple of projects and doing, just having that production video, kind of, that's my wheelhouse of doing this. And then hearing the faith, that's one thing that you kind of can have the faith, but then there's other opportunities if it's, outside of this, because right now there's, another group that I do, basically Ohio politics, conservative, and how, there's a lot of, you can, similarities or things that you can bring off of your faith to your moral, compass of politics or whatever. But
Sure.
to do both is really fun. I do love the editing, the video, getting everything, lined up, and just, try to do the best you can do. I try to tell everybody that what I'm doing. I'm doing, kind of Fox the best I can, or any kind of news network the best I can, to make it look, professional. I the camera, I know, the lighting's, I'm working on that right now, but
Oh no,
just,
it's a
but
beautiful cathedral you're in.
It's there's a lot of different little kind of easy ways to do that kind of stuff with the software that we use and all that. And I think one thing that if I share anything, is the gift of sharing any kind of video to people. um it's really rewarding after people watch it or have, and one thing that with Fiat back in the day, at the beginning you got caught up in numbers, and I know a lot of people get caught up in numbers. But a gentleman, Al Smith, who did his own Hungry for More podcast with Fiat, always was mentioning one soul. I think we connect to one soul, one comment, one anything that comes up onto any kind of content that we create. That's more important than getting caught up in numbers, because someone, and another a gentleman that I kind of get kind of mentored, says someone else is going to be above what you're doing. There's always going to be someone below and someone be above what your production or whatever you're doing, and just stay in what you can do. Of course you want to build. I mean, I'm always trying to build. I'm trying to, whatever video or anything that I'm doing, I'm always trying to build, but kind of understand your lane, kind of figure out your lane and stay with it, and just don't get frustrated with too many numbers, because I think a lot of times with this kind of work, we're always looking how many views, how many people are liking and subscribing, and it's important. I'm not gonna like say it's not, but I always think of Al Smith and how he kind of says,
He was on the show, that the interview that you did. Al happened. He was
yeah,
on that.
exactly.
Yeah, I remember him. He's
Yeah.
a huge proponent for sainthood for Bishop Fulton Sheen.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's still working on.
Is he
Yeah, he has.
blessed now?
I believe
Is he
so.
blessed?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe he's blessed, and I know Al has a bunch of books out on, and so he's been still
Maybe we could
working.
link to him in the show notes after,
Yeah,
and
no, we'll have,
so
yeah, and
people.
hopefully maybe we can get him on your show, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it's I think, and then the other thing I mean, if I want to just share, like, this takes work, and I know Susan, you're like, how do we do this? One thing, I guess a talent or gift that I feel that I can share to people is kind of the patience of helping how to do the production or do something in
What are
the
you
sense.
saying, Kent?
No, but I do that for many people, and I feel
No, it's
that
true, and I thank God for that.
but I mean,
That
I
gift in
feel,
you. Yeah.
I'm not trying to say it's not,
Oh, it's all right.
but it's something that I feel some people get, worked up or frustrated.
Mhm.
I mean, when you just want to get it done, and I get that. I get some people that are, but the patience of production and understanding what's going on, I feel that I like to share and how to do
Mhm.
this too, as much as doing it myself. To be able to pay it forward is kind of another benefit to what I do. I wish anyone that wants to need any help, I can do that. It's I'm doing something full time that I'm not exactly what I want to be doing, and now I'm trying to build this up to a full time production kind of job, business, and I'm always building up to that. And so I just
Oh,
if anyone's interested, just please let me know and email me.
sure. And that is an important point that you're bringing up too, because when we talk about talents, and you have done an incredible job in making this look far more polished then I have I'll have to maybe post a picture, but like on the back of my door, let's see, where is it back there? There's a sign that says shh recording, and it's just like me scribbling with Sharpie for my kids out there. But Kent has this absolute talent of, as we are talking, he's the one who's switching back and forth between the screens. I mean, this is his talent. This is what he's good at. And this is his passion. We've talked about that many times, Kent, haven't we? Where though you're doing work full time because of your family and you're willing to do what it takes to provide for your family, you have this desire in your heart to do production full time. And
Hmm.
so I would encourage anybody that has need of this, that maybe has a thought about, how do I get started in a podcast? How do I have this idea for a live stream event. Kent has an amazing talent for that. So anything like that, definitely. Kent, your contact information, I'm sure we'll get it up there so that
Yeah.
people can reach you. So my point though, and what I was saying is that you don't need to have it all together to start. I certainly didn't have it all
Mhm.
together. I still don't have it all together. And yet this is part of stepping out in faith, feeling or sensing that you have something to share with others.
Mhm.
Um, and whether or not it's received in the way that maybe you envision it being received really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the stepping out in obedience. The show is called Entrusted because these are gifts that each of us have been given. Uh, they've been entrusted to us, and it's really taken from the concept of the parables and how the guys were given these parables, and the master had said to them, hey, I'm going to come back. I'm going to collect on that. So he gave them to these gentlemen to invest them. And when he came back, the first guy had doubled his, the second guy had doubled his,
Mhm.
and the third guy had hid his because he said, I knew you were a hard man. And so I didn't want to lose it. So, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Mhm.
So I buried it. But here, let me go get it for you. And it didn't go well for him. And the moral of that story is we've been given these gifts in our lives, these talents in our lives to invest. And what's important to remember is to invest in others. I
Mhm.
haven't talked about this at all.
Mhm.
I don't even know if I've talked to you about it, Kent. I have this tattoo. I don't know if you can see
Mhm.
it. Okay.
Yep.
So it's INAM. It's not about me. And that's
Uh,
not because I think everything is all about me, but more, this is a reminder to me to remember that when I get nervous, when I feel stuck, when I feel overwhelmed and don't want to move forward, it's not about me. God didn't give me these things in my life, the ability to talk, to be able to laugh with people, to maybe draw out some of their stories for my own sake. Obviously, it's something that I'm doing with other people. And it's important to remember that what we are doing is for other people. So basically, get beyond yourself, do what needs to be done for the good of others. And the importance in that too is to remember that anything that we're given freely. And it's so important to share freely. And that doesn't mean like without pay, but really just share freely with everyone that you can, even if it is the gift of a smile that you have for someone else. You never know how you will impact another life.
mhm.
Ken, you talked about interviewing people on Fiat, and I'm curious, what was your favorite part of interviewing other people or doing the production itself?
Well, I think the interviewing, I try to always let the guests shine. That's my kind of, I was never a very well spoken person. I try my best. And I just said, okay, I will just show myself and just be humbled by the guest. And I think that's really what I try to do. I just wanted the guest to be the highlight. We had him, he or she on for a reason, and let them kind of, lead the show, but always try to hopefully give some good, questions or 2 cents that I had. the share, but really it was just listening to whatever they had to say. I think that's sometimes, um, you know, people want to, take over the show, which it's right. As the host, you need to take over your show, but I always felt that if I could let the guests kind of guide the show, and I would, if I had to bring them in or whatnot, I could try to do that. But I think
I agree with
just,
that perspective.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I do. I think it's important.
Hmm. Yeah, and so I enjoyed everything. We had a lot of people on, and the over the years, I think Fiat was, saying yes to your, your faith, and saying yes to Jesus Christ. And sometimes you, you know, there was a lot of, different ways that people said yes, or, what they wanted to, share. And I just wanted, people to hear. And nowadays, with what you can do with YouTube and Facebook, and I know I'm naming a lot of, there's other ones, on the political side with Rumble, and now X, which was Twitter. You got, a lot of different platforms to share, even Substack, which is kind of a newsletter that we're hoping to get your podcast on, and get that up and running. There's so many platforms to share this. Um, that's the amazing part, and it could be recorded or live. I
Mhm.
love live for, a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a one-time take. You're done. You can always cut stuff out, but with a live, you're, whatever it is, it
Less work.
is. Yeah, well, yeah, less work, but whatever it is, it is. And sometimes,
That's true.
when I hear a lot of people talk about they're nervous about doing a podcast, or getting to a point where they want to start a podcast, or, you know all these things that really don't matter to anybody. If you really think about it, you, in the
Mhm.
sense, no one's going you know they have other things on their mind. They want information, or they want to hear what the guest has to say. They're not going to wonder all of these other, you know kind of trivial things that people,
Right.
and it's more the content. If you can focus on the content and try to share the content the best you can, in a kind of a nice structure. A lot of people, a gentleman that Mark K, who's actually doing a Zoom right around this time, is talking about podcasting right now. I
Oh, really?
recommend school for Mark K if you ever want to check it out. It's really good, but um, and I get a lot of pointers from him. But one thing is, take that, you know, take whatever you're trying to do, and I know you're sharing
Hmm.
other people's talents with this podcast. Have that, starting point, and then work your way out with the guests that you have on. But don't get all caught up if it's, completely perfect, because then
Right.
you're wasting too much time with the try to make it, TV quality, which, yeah, you can get to that point. Of course, everybody can get to that point. It takes, it takes the gear, it takes, what you're doing, time, basically. But
Hmm.
one thing that I keep telling anybody to start a podcast, just as much as I know Nike's not a lot of people like talking about Nike, but just do it has a good sense of a podcast. When you're doing a podcast, doing any kind of production, just do it. Of course, if you're doing something more, you know, as professional as you can, of course you're gonna edit or try to get it the your lighting and I know everybody wants it looks good, but we sometimes get caught up into that and not worrying about just the content. And I think sometimes I think about that too much too. So I'm looking in the mirror when I'm doing saying any of this stuff, because I'm
Yeah.
always thinking. But if you
Do you,
want,
oh,
oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, go ahead. See.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think too, and admittedly, like I'm totally not live right now. This is being recorded. Kent has been a big advocate for, hey, just do it. And um, that would be very good advice. There's something to be said for being very authentic and not even trying to be polished. Um, and honestly, one of the prompts for me to do this podcast in the first place was that I found myself when I began thinking about doing things along this line, um, maybe doing some public speaking, writing more, having a podcast, doing events for women, which I've started to do. What I have found is that when I was in the process of considering it, I was really hungry for podcasts or, videos, whatever, anything that would talk about the thing that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was fascinated by it. I was, like I said, hungry for that information. When I reflect on it, I think there was something in that I was also looking for permission. I was looking for permission, like, okay, you can go ahead and start it, or you have enough talent to do this yourself. And that's when I realized, like, I was pouring myself into areas that were surrounding what I wanted to do. And the way actually that this began to happen was stepping out in faith and in obedience. I have another podcast called Conversations with God,
Mm-hmm.
where I have this prayer time with God, and God would say over and over and over, I will pour into you, you pour into the world. And this would go on. This happened actually for a couple of years. I have notebooks full. And it was when I began to be obedient to that is when everything else fell into place. Kent, that's when I actually reached out to you. It had been over a decade,
Yeah.
yeah, over a decade, and just was like, hey, I loved what you were doing with your faith. I'm interested in doing the same thing. I'd love to pick your brain. And you were so incredibly gracious. And Linda Kemper, who's doing my
Mm-hmm.
marketing, had been and is incredibly busy,
Mm-hmm.
but seemed to kind of come back on board and was reignited with, like, yeah, let's do this. And that's that's my point in bringing this up to anybody that's listening, and everything to do with Entrusted, the gifts that you have, whatever it is, even if it has nothing to do with podcasting. But if it's something that's in your heart, I mean, if it's something that you keep circling back to, maybe that's a call to you to be taking it a little more seriously than you are, and to find a path forward in that, whatever that looks like. I needed those shows. I needed that kind of affirmation, that encouragement at the time. And so I'm really grateful for those people that weren't too nervous to go ahead and put themselves out there and offer that kind of information to other people. And that's what I mean by that. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about
Mm-hmm.
helping other people and putting it out there, recognizing that talent is not necessarily a personal attribute, not necessarily something that is about your character, but rather it's a gift that's been entrusted to you
Mm-hmm.
for the good of others.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, and Kent, you being one of the OG podcasters, you've seen a lot of change. You've seen a lot of change from
Mm-hmm.
when you first started to now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think it's become easier for people to kind of get the word out?
Well, and I think the easiest way that people can get the word out is this thing right here. That's
Mm,
made a lot of things very easy. A phone for any audio, but the phone has really made it easy to do the podcasting. Um, back in the day when I started, and when I was watching people do, there was no YouTube in the sense of a live stream or Facebook as a live stream. There was those outlets, but um, you would have to have people directed to your website to watch a stream if you wanted to do anything live. Um, and now, because it's so easy to do, there's multiple ways you can live stream at the same time to multiple different destinations at the same time. I do up to 4 different destinations on a lot of podcasts, and you can get comments in real time. You can put them up and share. But back in the day, well, I'm calling my age, but really back in the early 2000, like 2008, 2006, right where it started to live streaming was popping up. Yeah, of course, you had to have a CDN. It was basically you put a video player on your website, and you would tell people to go to your website. Now that Facebook is so powerful, YouTube, I know everybody has their feelings about, but they are there. Like, they are there to help, and of course there's things that are negative. As someone that's a Christian and with moral beliefs that don't go with those companies, but it's the platform to go to: YouTube, Facebook, of course X, Twitter. Those are the
You're spreading
platforms.
the light in those platforms. You're spreading the light. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I understand. I think you do have to be very discerning about where you want to be and what is good for you, if it makes you feel, if it brings you down, or if you are able to stand strong and get your message out there.
yeah,
But you're saying these are tools. Um, if I'm hearing you correctly, that's
yeah.
what I'm hearing you say, is that these are
Hmm.
tools to be able to help people get the word out, or maybe grow an audience.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube, Facebook, what I would tell anyone, and I know I've mentioned this a couple times with you and all that, having your website. I mean, you have a website, Harbor Lily Creative, you have .com,
.com.
.com, sorry, um, and
It's okay.
to have that central, I look at that as a central spoke of a wheel is your website,
Mhm.
to direct people to that, to get email lists, to collect from YouTube, which is really great that you can have and embed, which you've done on your
Mhm.
website with a great setup with your web designer and everything that you were doing to bring in all of the videos from YouTube, but still being over on YouTube, because YouTube is such a huge search engine
Mhm.
that people are going to be there, just like Facebook. And so you have to be over there, and just, you pick and choose what you want to do over there. And I think it's, like you said, it is a tool. I completely agree with that. And you try to
Mhm.
take those tools and use them for good things, hopefully with our, Holy Spirit and Our Lady and our Lord will work through, because I see a lot of things that you got. I mean, there's so many different opportunities to find things on those platforms that are good information that you can grow in your faith. And I think that's really, it's amazing. I mean, I don't think, I always said, um back in the day, what would Jesus do in this time? I mean, he would use those technologies. You know,
Mm.
I mean, you would use any way to get the word out. He would use it. I think he would figure out his own way. I think he would have the right way completely, but he would
Sure.
use the tools to get the word out. and that's what.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. You're prompting these thoughts, and sometimes my mouth is
No,
faster
no,
than
you're not sure.
my. I've also heard it said, and this is not something I made up, but this is very true, is that what Jesus would do is he would go where the people are.
Mm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
very true for especially teenagers, and
Mm.
most people scrolling through their phones. It's going where the people are. That is probably where they would encounter you versus um, I don't know, older platforms, even just books or speaking. You have when you're speaking to an audience, it's kind of in that audience unless it's recorded. And then where would it be shared? Probably on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean that's a very good point. This is a tool, I'd say, for evangelization, um, and not just but that was something that was Pope John Paul II, wasn't it? The new evangelization,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and a lot we have a lot of people that have taken that very seriously and are in this space now and are doing a lot of good,
Yeah.
and that is something to be commended.
Right.
I know that it's tricky. I know that people have their feelings about it, but you can look at it from both angles.
Mm-hmm. And I just look at it, if you can do your best at, and take the talents that you have and use them as either being the talent in a host of a show or behind the scenes production, sharing, going through setting everything up, whatever it is,
Sure.
on a podcast, or using your phone and just picking it up and talking for a couple minutes, um whatever you can do to share. And that's, I mean, it's amazing, watching these, different events. I know there's different things that are happening, but just the, you know Saint John Paul II was the most, I mean, now it's probably different, but he was the most photographed video, person in the world, because people at that point were lucky at least to have some kind of video device, which was a phone at some point, and or cameras and all that. And
Hmm.
he was sharing wherever he was, and all he had to do is take that phone out and record whatever he was saying. And it was kind of amazing that people would just put that up. And back in the day, you had to write before all of that, you had to write down things, or image, but now,
Sure.
I mean, as soon as you can say anything, it's up there. And you just have to figure out what's morally right and what you want to share, and what you, you know
Yeah.
and that's sometimes the hardest part, with so much stuff happening and so fast. And patience, and take some
Hmm.
time. I think that's sometimes it's so fast sometimes that we need to like slow down. I mean, that's why we're swiping through videos.
Hmm.
Shorts are so addict. I mean, you're just 15 minutes later, you're still going through. I'm guilty of it too, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's maybe good stuff and faith
Yeah.
wise.
Are you into the kitty and dog pee videos?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, you
that's
brought up a good point. Oh, go ahead.
no,
Go
no. Go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, holding up a phone or a priest friend of mine, we've been talking about getting his homilies on a platform to share with people who no longer live close by, or just to get it out there to more people, get the gospel out there. And he was asking, well, we were looking at different apps and all of that, and again, I borrowed somebody else's wisdom and said, the best one to use is the one that you'll actually use. So whatever's easiest for you, that's what you're going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's what he's kind of figured out is that, yeah, you can just hit record, and then we're kind of figuring out what to do with it from there. But the other part of this is that it might take more than just you.
Mm.
And I'm speaking about myself. I do not have the gifts and talents that you have. I mean, and
Mm.
that's very clear from the, do you remember we were trying to figure out video camera so that I could do some of this on my end. And it was like
Mhm.
3 hours later, and I was no further ahead because I am not tech savvy and you are. And both of us kind of hit the conclusion at the same time, which was probably the Holy Spirit hitting us over the head, like, stay in your lane. Because the more that I try to focus on that, then I also have this very full life with 7 kids and my fourth grandson on the way. And everything that goes into it, that my time is limited, but so is my bandwidth and what I'm able to kind of
Mm.
learn in the tiredness of going through these days and being busy. But also, it just isn't my natural talent as much as I wanted it to be. I went back to university to study communications, just graduated. I went back as an adult and just graduated again in 2019. And that, I just remember that was some of the, I was so excited to learn it. We would sit in the editing bays. We had it all pulled up in front of us. They used Apples. I was not familiar with Apple.
Mm.
It was just incredible to me. First of all, that it seems to be in the DNA of people that have grown up with technology, and for some of us, um, more mature people, it doesn't come as easy. And it might just be me. It might just be me that that is not my
Mm.
forte, and I just, though I can maybe learn down the road, but lean on people that are there. I mean, I really
Mm.
believe that God brought you into my life, Linda into my life. And that's something that if you have a talent that you can't figure out the whole picture, maybe open up your eyes and look around a little bit to others who might have a similar um, vision that you have, or are willing to support you in what it is that you do. Because if God has given you this talent or this gift, He's going to make a way for you to share with His people. That's His goal. And He can do that through you. So there's all different kinds of ways that He could work. That is definitely one of the ways that I've been blessed. We're just getting started. And it's kind of cool to be
Mm.
on at ground zero. It was not really, we had no idea how this was going to go. And though it's growing slow, anybody that's out there, if you have not subscribed, boy, we would really appreciate if you would and share it. That's the way that you build momentum. And so we'd be so grateful if you would do that.
Mm.
But don't you think, Ken, I mean, like you've been from the get go, like, hey, we've got this idea, and just kind of watching it, even though it's been incremental, it's exciting
Oh
to see
yeah, it's
something kind of grow.
well. There's a lot of things that we've been talking about for the future, ideas to do some other events and all that. That's really exciting too, and just and that's really the numbers. Always thinking of that one soul. As soon as you get that next person into the um, you know, that subscribes, or it's a great blessing to have.
Hmm.
And I think one thing that I would say in kind of a closing way of you know just don't give up. And I think one thing that I'm really happy to see the growth is you know you're doing it. A lot of people don't even get to that point. And to I was, I mean, back in the day, I was very, I wish I went back and took communications like you did, because there's so much that I would learn from that education. And I'm so glad that you're doing that, or you did that.
That is not
Um,
what I, I tried. You
but
would have. That would have been really good for you. I learned more, like, though that was part of my training. I just jumped right over you, and I'm so sorry about that.
no, it's hard.
Um, I just want to say that I learned what was really good for me was keeping the door of communication open. Though I went into communication thinking that was what I was going to learn, more production, more being able to do things without having to be reliant on others, because I know how busy they are. I didn't want to burden anybody that had been helping me with the book publishing journey, which was awesome in itself. That's what one of the main reasons that I went was to, I love it. I thoroughly enjoy it. I feel called to it. And yet I was trying to learn how to do it. And what's interesting to me is that though I gained a lot of great education and things that I wouldn't have thought of naturally, took a lot of like psych courses and which was just fascinating. I
Mm,
thoroughly enjoy that. A lot of different, it was not only was it cool to have those experiences as an adult, um, it was also learning alongside my peers were the age of my kids. And so that was an education all in itself. They definitely don't want to be called kids. They are fellow classmates. Nor did I like to be called the old lady. No, they were really gracious too. It was a lot of fun. But I love youth and I love hearing their perspectives and I love it gave a lot of insight too.
mm,
It's amazing to me that you can kind of get the older we get a little bit more in our own thoughts and this is the way that it is. So it's an excellent experience to have fresh perspectives brought in and really challenge you in the way that
mm,
you have been thinking. And I really thought things kind of went along in life the way that they always had, but that's what I mean by things are changing all the time. And that would be yet another case of this is a great medium to be able to reach different people because again, um, that was just proven to me time and time again. This is where people hang out.
yeah. No, and I totally agree. And using all of this, just just use it and see where it goes. And I know, you know, I think it's amazing what you've done so far. And I know you're
Mm.
using different ways of getting, the shorts out and doing. I know
Mhm.
Linda's helping out with that too,
She's
and all of
amazing.
the
She's
and
really a blessing.
yeah, and so it's it's time, but it is hopefully rewarding in the sense of maybe getting a comment or just people, noticing, with an email or anything. That's really what takes me to keep on going because there's a lot of people that will share that you keep you mentioned. I mean, I mentioned this the first time we got back on and talking, and that email that you sent me was very meaningful to me, and so it takes one soul to kind of get you, okay, this is, it's worth it that you're doing it, and you might not always see it, especially with this kind of content where it's not applause. You don't you can get a sound effect and all that if you really want to do that kind of stuff, but you don't hear that as speaking engagements or anything. You're just talking to a camera, talking to a phone, whatever you're doing, and you're talking to someone else with either a recording or live. um and
Mhm.
take that initiative just to go for it, and don't be afraid. I think that's one thing that I was glad that I did. I wasn't polished. I'm still not polished. But it's out there, and at
You're
least,
real.
yeah. So, but thank you.
And I love it that you're very approachable, which puts everybody else at ease. There's not this pressure to be, like you said, perfect. It's just like, let's just do this.
Hmm.
So I appreciate that. I thank you for that.
Yeah,
I'd love to try in the future too. Um, I mean, maybe in some of the shows where because you're there, you're helping produce
yeah,
it and everything, but have you weigh in during some of these
sure.
conversations?
Yeah, I
Maybe
appreciate
we
that.
do some of those. I mean, not that we need um the applause, but
No,
special effects or whatever. It's just be
yeah,
fun to have the producer be
yeah,
involved.
sure.
I enjoy shows like
I
that.
would,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but I
Well,
appreciate. Yeah,
yeah. No, I one last question I had
yeah.
for you before you jet off. I just
Mm,
was I'm curious, what if there is somebody that's watching that maybe is having to kind of do the grind of the job that they don't necessarily love doing, but they know that they're needed for survival, and providing. How do you keep, what could you say to them? Because you are doing these jobs that keep you active in a field that you're passionate about. Um, at the end of the day, you're tired and yet here you are. I mean, how would you encourage somebody else and that might be in the same boat?
well, one thing I would probably, as thinking about that, um, knowing that you know, you're still getting that kind of little bit of energy to do it in the sense of um, I need to do this kind of thing because I know I have a family that I already did that part of the day. I saw them, and now I can sit down and kind of do things that really get my get me excited about doing certain situations that I don't usually get to do throughout the day or week or whatever. It's more of a kind of a momentum to get to that to the time of the day that I can do this. It's sometimes you're dragging through the day, and you're just trying to think of other ways to create content, or I want to make this little video to put up. You're you're always trying to be creative in your head, and I think that's something that is helpful, that you have a full day job that you're focused on your work, but then you can kind of still think of other things that you can do at the end of the day to get that energy to go. I mean, it's tiring at times, but I think taking a little of initiative to do it, because one thing is that if you don't, sometimes I think of, for me, when I'm sitting down getting, you're done with the day with work and all that, you can sit down and watch content or make content. And for me, I try to make content as much as I can to get to the point where I can be making content full time. So it's kind of that kind of thing. Is taking
Mm-hmm.
what what time that you have and making it as meaningful, and you know just do what you can do with the time that you have, and still be with family and you know other things like that. But I think the focus is take at least the 15, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever time that you
Mm-hmm.
have in the evening or whatever time that you're doing it, and go make make content, create, kind of thing. So
Sure.
I appreciate
That's
that
great
question.
advice. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kent. This has been an awesome
Yeah,
show. I really appreciate you being willing to share.
yeah,
Um, would you be, if anybody has questions, like maybe they have thought about doing their own podcast or have tech questions, do you mind if they reach out to you?
yeah. No, I have it. I'll just put up my it's just KKUHOLSKI23 at gmail.com. I have other emails. That's kind of the one that you can get, still contact me. But there's, that's probably the best way to reach out. Um,
Sure.
and I appreciate that, Susan. Thank you.
Of course. Of course. If anybody didn't catch that, or maybe that's not their thing to email, feel free to leave a comment below the
Hmm.
video, and I will definitely will make sure that Kent gets it.
Yeah.
So thanks, Kent. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us. This has been really a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you have as well. I hope you found it helpful. Again, if you don't mind, and if you haven't subscribed, will you please subscribe? Will you consider it? That would be a tremendous help to us in helping grow this podcast and encouraging other people to use their talents. If you have a talent, or you know somebody that does, that you feel would be that person would like to be a guest on the show, or would be um, willing to share what they've been doing, please reach out to me, Susan at harborlilycreative.com. I'd love to be in touch with them. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next time together.